With just a little over a month until the Switch 2 launches and the first round of pre-orders already being in, you gotta ask the question, if you didn't secure a pre-order, should you be upgrading your Nintendo Switch to the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025. Now, I'm sure many people are extremely excited about the Switch 2's launch. We have a powerful new Switch variation, and it's going to be very exciting with a lot of new games coming to the system. However, there are some caveats that could potentially lead you to wait to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2, and I'm going to talk about all the reasons today why you may just want to hold off and pick one up a little bit later down the road. And that's not to say there isn't a reason to get a Switch at launch. I just think there's reasons to maybe hold off a little bit. Now, the most important thing when looking at a new console is very obviously the games. We want to know what games we're going to be able to play on the Nintendo Switch 2 versus the Nintendo Switch. And truth be told, there's not really that many games that are coming from Nintendo specifically, not talking third party, but from Nintendo themselves that are coming to the Switch 2 that aren't also going to be on the Nintendo Switch. And that's something you definitely have to keep in mind. As far as first party games go for the Nintendo Switch 2, the exclusive ones to that system are Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Daemon X Machina, as well as Kirby Air Riders. As of right now, those are the only ones coming out this year that are not going to be on the original Nintendo Switch. However, the other games that they showed off in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, looking at things like the Zelda games that are getting enhanced upgrade versions, those are both available on the standard Nintendo Switch. You can pick up Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. Also looking at Metroid Prime 4, there is a Nintendo Switch version of Metroid Prime 4. That's really big. You can just play it on your Nintendo Switch instead of the Switch 2. Pokemon Legends ZA that's coming out later this year is also going to be on the Nintendo Switch, so you don't have to get the new model in order to play the new Pokemon game. So a lot of the games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, which look fantastic and they've shown the upgraded features, are still going to be on the base Nintendo Switch model. And I think this is a key thing that you have to think about as far as, are Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, which are the new games that are actually coming out relatively close to the launch, if not on launch day for the Nintendo Switch 2, are those games worth picking up a Switch 2 right now? And if they're not, I'd say wait. Another reason I could justify not picking up a Switch 2 right now is if you're anything like me, you have a massive backlog. Look at all those games back there. I haven't touched so many of the games that I already have on my Nintendo Switch. Currently, I'm working on playing through Metroid Prime Remaster for the first time, and I am loving it. I've never played Metroid before, so if you're like me and have a massive backlog, you may have games that you just haven't touched yet that you don't really need a Switch 2 to play because you can already play them on your normal Switch. And if you're like that and you have a huge backlog, maybe you can hold off on adding a couple more titles to your backlog, such as Metroid Prime 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza. There's a ton of new games coming that you could probably hold off and catch on sale, especially if you're upset about the prices that are available for some of these games. You can wait and catch them on sale around the holidays if you pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 then. I think that's a major component, is if you have stuff to play that you haven't already on your base Nintendo Switch, you don't necessarily need to upgrade right away. Now, other reasons outside of games alone to not necessarily upgrade to the Nintendo Switch 2. I think there's a handful of different options. First and foremost, you gotta ask yourself, do you actually like playing the console docked? If you don't like playing that console docked, you may want to wait, because I'd imagine down the line, we're gonna get, probably next year, a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite. And that's gonna be the same thing that the Nintendo Switch Lite is, just for the Nintendo Switch 2. Not only is this going to give you the option to not have to dock the Switch and only play it handheld, which will probably help the battery life of the system, but also it will bring the price down of the system. The Nintendo Switch Lite is much cheaper than a base Nintendo Switch model, and that makes it a lot more affordable for people that aren't particularly happy about the $450 price point on the new Nintendo Switch. Now, the Switch 2 Lite is not only a reason to wait, but a lot of people, a lot of friends have brought this up, that they kind of want to hold out and wait to see if there's some sort of special bundle coming later down the line, specifically in the form of special edition Nintendo Switch models. Looking at things like the Scarlet and Violet one, the Zelda one that was available for the Nintendo Switch. There was a lot of special edition Nintendo Switch that came out based on certain games. Animal Crossing is another one that comes to mind. A lot of those games got special Switch consoles that coincided with them, and a lot of people want to wait to see if maybe Pokemon gets one for Legends ZA, maybe we get one next year for Zelda, or Mario's anniversary is coming up, so maybe Mario gets a special Switch too. If you're into collecting those special edition Switches, then you may want to hold off a little bit and see what's coming later down the pipeline, because I'd imagine within a year we have a couple of those announced. Now, I feel like if we're talking about buying a new system, we kind of have to talk about price. And whether you are happy or not happy with the price of the system, $450 is still a lot of money. There's no questioning that at all, especially if you get the Mario Kart tie-in. It's now up to $500. That's not including tax or getting a warranty on the system in case something happens to it, and then you can get a replacement through wherever you buy it through. That can rack up really quick. You're pushing around $600. Not to mention that the new Nintendo Switch does not use the micro SD cards that were previously used in the old Nintendo Switch. These new SD cards are quite pricey. They are the SD card expresses that just came out, and they are much quicker. They download stuff more effectively. They allow for better gameplay. The problem is the price. They are extremely expensive, with the biggest one being 1 terabyte being around $200 at the moment. So you can't just take your micro SD out of your old Switch and pop it into your new Switch and get going. You gotta spend extra money if you want the extra space. And for a lot of people that play digital only, that's a problem, because you are going to have to download those games and you're going to run out of space very quickly on your new Switch. This is also something to note, that a lot of new physical games are using the game keycard function, which means once you insert the game keycard into your console, you're going to have to download the game, much like you do on PlayStation or Xbox. So you'll have to use up some of that space relatively quickly if you're getting a lot of those game keycards, and that's going to eat through space, which means you're going to have to buy an SD card to have additional room on your system. And again, those prices are pretty high right now. Now, over time, those are going to start dipping and you're going to see those prices come down, but you'll have to wait a bit for that to happen. So if you're looking to maybe get a ton of games when you get your Nintendo Switch 2, you may want to hold off and just wait for those prices to come down a bit and then get the Switch 2 and load up on all the other fun stuff. On top of the memory expansions being expensive, you do also have to consider that a lot of the games that are getting Switch 2 versions will cost an upgrade fee in order to play. Looking at Zelda specifically, those are going to require a $10 upgrade for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild in order to access the Switch 2 versions. Looking at Kirby, that is $20, and a lot of these games are following that trend. So on top of not only having to get a Nintendo Switch 2, you have to pay to upgrade the games, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally. I think that makes sense. That's how PlayStation's always done it. It's always been about a $10 upgrade fee. The exceptions are Kirby and Mario Party, where they are $20, but those games are not only getting upgraded, they are also coming with additional content. So that is why those have an additional $10 on top of the upgrade, because you're getting extra content with those games when you upgrade them to the Switch 2 version. So you do have to factor that in, that if you have old games that you want to replay on the new system with the improved performances, you are going to have to fork over a little bit extra money, unless you have NSO Plus. That is going to give you access to the Zelda upgrades at no additional charge. So there are a handful of different reasons that you may want to hold off on a Nintendo Switch 2. Me personally, I'm very excited for it. I'm looking to pick up a Switch 2 day one. I got my pre-order locked in and I'm very excited to hop in, but I can totally understand anybody that wants to hold off and wait, because like I said, there's just not that many games that are coming out as of this year that are exclusive to that console. And I think that's the biggest thing in this whole thing, is that you have to focus on the games, because that's what the console's for. And without there being that many exclusives, it's kind of worth just waiting if you can, in order to pick up potentially a cheaper Switch if it goes on sale for the holidays or anything, or even get those games at a discounted price a little bit later down the line. I think that is a perfectly understandable and reasonable thing to do in regards to the Nintendo Switch 2, especially because we just talked about first party. We don't know what third party stuff's coming yet, outside of the stuff that was shown in the direct, like Cyberpunk and Civilization. There's a lot of games that we just don't know if they're going to make their way to the Nintendo Switch. So if this is your main way to play games and that's what you're looking for, maybe there's an alternative that you'd rather get, or maybe just wait and see if those games ever come to the Switch. And if that means it's not worth it to you, then that means it's not worth it to you. So I think there's a handful of reasons you could justify waiting to upgrade your Nintendo Switch to the new Switch version coming in June. But let me know in the comments below. Are you looking to pick up the Switch 2 on June 5th? Did you get your pre-order locked in, or are you thinking about waiting a little bit and seeing what happens? Let me know all that fun stuff in the comments below. That's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like and sub for more Nintendo Switch content from me in the future, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.